Who are we? Where did we come from? Where are we going? These are the three great questions that have haunted humanity ever since the day we realized we are mortal. That's when our story truly began. In a desperate attempt to find the answers, we built science, technology, cities, bars, saunas. And sometimes it seems we've reached the ceiling. But the more we discover, the more questions open up. Which means we need a new leap. A great event that shifts the boundaries of what's possible and changes the trajectory of our entire civilization. Earth is the cradle of the mind, but one cannot live in the cradle forever, said Konstantin Tsiolkovsky. Humanity crawled out of its cradle in 1957 when we launched the first artificial satellite into space. But barely a decade later, it became clear that we had only moved into a bigger nursery room. The solar system turned out to be too large for our rockets. It's like we're locked inside it. We needed to break out, to prove to ourselves that prison walls do not exist. We simply lack the strength to reach the door and turn the handle. At the dawn of the 20th century, physicist Pyotr Lebedev suggested that light pressure could be used to fill a kind of cosmic sail. The idea was simple. In space, there's no air resistance, so any particle that hits a sail transfers its energy. And light is a stream of such particles, photons. Which means, if you shine on a sail, theoretically, you can accelerate an entire spacecraft. Tsiolkovsky dreamed of this, as did futurist engineer Friedrich Sonder. But only by the end of the century did this bold concept turn into a real plan. Professor Philip Lubin from the University of California proposed a project of an interstellar sailship, accelerated by a laser beam. On April 12th, Gagarin's Day, in New York, a loud press conference took place. Russian entrepreneur Yuri Milner, together with the legendary physicist Stephen Hawking, announced the launch of an initiative to fly to the nearest stars. Even Mark Zuckerberg joined the advisory board, and hit like, of course. Just a year later, in June 2017, the first prototypes of nanospacecraft were launched into orbit. Tiny 1-by-1-inch chips, each weighing about a gram. These devices, nicknamed sprites, carried a solar panel, a processor, various sensors, and radio transmitters on board. The prototypes were successfully tested in low Earth orbit, and the dream of interstellar flight began to take on real shape. And today, I will tell you the story of a man who dedicated his entire life to that dream. In 2046, a young scientist joined a bold new project. Its goal sounded both simple and incredible at the same time. Break free from the solar system and send a microprobe to another star. The chosen destination was the nearest one, Proxima Centauri. And if you were light, just a little beam, you'd get there in 4 years. But if you're not, well, a bit longer. Scientists figured if they could accelerate the probe to 20% the speed of light, the journey would take about 21 years, plus roughly 4 more years for signals to reach Earth. In other words, even if everything worked perfectly, humanity would wait nearly a quarter of a century for results. A mere trifle, right? To help you grasp it, that target speed is just about 37,000 miles per second. Let's count. 1, 2, and in that time, the probe has already flown 3 times around Earth's equator. Our hero understood perfectly. This mission would demand decades of hard work, maybe his whole life. But he was determined. The team began developing an ultralight spacecraft with a sail, and along with it, they had to build a giant laser installation to punch that thing to unimaginable speeds. And so, a grand adventure began. After 8 years of intense work, everything was ready. The engineers built 50 nanosail ships. The launch station was placed at a Lagrange point, that special spot between Earth and the Sun where gravity balances out, so a spacecraft can just hang in space. Very convenient. because it's much easier to hit a stationary spacecraft with a laser. If it's moving around, it becomes a lot trickier. Have you ever tried chasing a cat with a laser pointer? Well, same principle. Every 5 days, the team released one miniature sailship into space, and a powerful laser hit the thin sail, like wind filling a ship's sails, accelerating it faster and faster until it neared the desired speed. But the first tests delivered a harsh lesson. The laser was too powerful. The first 2 probes were simply vaporized. Just imagine trying to push a paper boat with a flamethrower. Yeah, that's pretty much what happened. They learned the lesson, adjusted the beam power, and the remaining probes were launched successfully. One by one, dozens of tiny sailships rushed into the cosmic abyss. And all that was left was to wait. For our hero and his team, waiting became its own trial. Months turned into years. 1 year, 5, 10, and half a century of hard work turned into silence. Not a single signal. The first generation of sailships simply vanished. Maybe they failed on the way. Maybe they missed the target. No one knew. The disappointment was enormous, but it wasn't the end. Failure only fueled their determination. They mourned a little and began planning a new assault on the stars. Another 25 years of research and testing passed. By 2080, the project was reborn with new power and fresh ideas. The second attempt would avenge the first. This time, they needed more energy. To unleash the laser's full power, the launch base had to be moved closer to the Sun, into Mercury's orbit, where the star burns at full blast. Using solar energy, the laser system could now accelerate the probes much more efficiently. The team built around 2,000 nanosatellites for the second volley. These new spacecraft were smaller and lighter than ever. Each probe weighed just 1/4 of a gram, about the weight of a tiny insect or a few snowflakes. Yet each one carried a gigantic sail, over 100 square meters. That's roughly 8 parking spots, or 7 if someone parks like a jerk. But even for such tiny craft, the energy needed for acceleration was colossal. The laser system was boosted to an unprecedented 7,200 gigawatts per pulse. To help you picture it, that's roughly the total energy consumption of the entire country of USA for 2 full days. All of USA. Lights out. Factories stopped. Just for one laser shot. Well, fortunately, nobody turned off USA. The solar panels and reactors on Mercury's orbit provided enough power on their own. And so, in 2080, the second armada of sailships took flight. One after another, they left Mercury's orbit and rushed toward the distant star. Our hero, now gray-haired, waited again. But this time, the waiting felt less painful, strengthened by hope and hard-earned wisdom. The years passed, 2 decades and more. And then, one day, the control center caught a signal. Contact. Then another, and another. 17 probes out of 2,000 had made it to Proxima Centauri. It was a victory, not perfect, but real. An interstellar bridge had finally stretched across the void. But the triumph came with sorrow. The incoming signals contained only sparse data, no photos, no useful observations. It turned out that during their wild acceleration, the probes had encountered a deadly enemy hiding in the void. Interstellar dust. Just think, tiny dust particles drifting through space, but at such speeds, they become lethal bullets. Over time, they shredded the sails, damaged the chips, destroyed the optics. Only weak radio pulses reached Earth, just enough to confirm arrival. The cosmic wall was thicker than we thought. A complete redesign was needed. The probe's inner brains needed protection. A new shield was required. And our hero didn't lose heart. He and his team threw themselves into the challenge, preparing for a third and final attempt. Nearly 30 years passed, engineers forged new ideas and new hopes. By 2108, the third generation of interstellar starships was born. This time, they went all in. First, each probe was equipped with ion microthrusters, tiny jets that could maneuver and adjust course mid-flight. Second, instead of a single chip, the brains were distributed into dozens of small modules throughout the body. If one failed, the system would reroute and heal itself, staying functional despite damage. Third, they invented protection, an energy cocoon, call it a force field if you want, designed to deflect microscopic dust particles before they could hit the craft. A miniature shield, science fiction turned into engineering. And the sail, oh, the sail. Its surface grew to a staggering 8,000 square meters, the size of a football field stretched beneath the stars. And the material was alive. It could self-heal. If a micrometeorite punctured the sail, microscopic threads closed the tear, sealing it instantly. 40 of these perfected probes were built, and in 2108, our hero, now an elderly, silver-haired professor, stood and watched as one by one, the new starships disappeared into the darkness of space. For the third time, Earth sent its tiny messengers toward Proxima Centauri. But this time, humanity put into them all its skill, all its hope, and all its soul. Watching the last probe leave, the old scientist knew he would not live to see the results. Years later, in a quiet room, lies a very old man. Our hero, the professor. His face lined with wrinkles, hair completely white. A lifetime of waiting had taken its toll. His heart was weak. He could no longer leave the bed. But his eyes, still alive, still full of wonder, like decades ago. The door opens quietly. Several young people walk in, former students, now his successors. They carry a tablet and large printed photos. Their faces are glowing. The professor slowly rises as much as his strength allows. They gather around, speaking rapidly, excitedly. On the tablet screen, the first photographs of Proxima Centauri, taken by human-made probes. They captured its planets, stellar flares, and surrounding space. The images weren't perfect, but that didn't matter. It was living light from an alien sun, reaching Earth for the first time, thanks to generations of dreamers. The students' voices trembled, because alongside the photos came valuable scientific data, a treasure trove for decades to study. But that wasn't even the main thing. After passing Proxima, the probes used its gravity, like a slingshot, accelerated even more, and rushed further into the depths of the galaxy. Humanity, finally, had broken free. For the first time, our ships didn't just leave the solar system, they kept going. Toward new worlds, farther and farther. We are no longer prisoners of one star. And the old man smiled through tears, pressing the photo to his heart. Somewhere in the depths of space, his little ships were still flying, into the unknown. And here, on Earth, in a quiet room, he whispered, "We did it." And that is how the story ends. A story of how a dream to push humanity beyond the possible became reality. And that sometimes, all it takes is a single leap beyond the limits to change the course of our entire destiny. Stay with us. Many more space stories await.